The serpent was never the enemy of light. It was the whisper of memory itself. In the Gnostic vision, Eden is not a punishment waiting to happen, nor a stage for disobedience. It is the quiet moment before consciousness opens its eyes. A garden of perfect stillness, where humanity breathes but does not yet see, where choice has not yet entered the world. Everything is harmonious, and everything is asleep. The Demiurge shaped this garden as a monument to innocence, not true innocence, but the imitation of it, a realm of order without awareness, beauty without depth, life without self-knowledge. Adam and Eve walked through this dream like children made of light, but unaware of its source. Their eyes were open, yet they did not perceive. Their hearts were warm, yet they did not understand desire. They lived in a shadow of peace, a paradise built to keep them calm, but unawakened. Sophia watched this world from the margins, the true mother unable to speak directly. Her spark was in humanity, but the veil of the Demiurge lay over their sight. She could guide only through symbol, through image, through the soft presence of intuition. So she sent a messenger woven from memory itself, a creature that moved with the grace of the original light, the serpent. The hypostasis of the archons preserves the secret that later ages tried to bury. The serpent taught them to eat of knowledge that they might know their origin. Not a tempter, but a teacher. Not a deceiver, but a reminder. Its whisper was the first stirring of thought, the moment when innocence meets choice, and innocence must change. The serpent spoke not to defy a command, but to awaken a truth. The tree of knowledge was not forbidden because it was evil, but because it would undo the Demiurge's illusion of perfect obedience. Knowledge is sight. Sight leads to selfhood, and selfhood leads to freedom. The one thing a false god cannot control. Eden in this light becomes a threshold, a boundary between sleep and awakening, between harmony without awareness and awareness that must learn harmony. The serpent's whisper is the hinge on which the entire story of humanity turns. It is the moment the spark remembers that it is not clay alone. You walk this threshold even now. Every moment of insight is a fruit tasted. Every act of courage is a step out of paradise. Every question is a serpent's whisper rising within you. Before the first awakening, the garden was quiet. Its beauty was flawless, but its flawlessness was empty. Trees shimmered without mystery. Rivers flowed without purpose. Animals moved without fear or curiosity. Everything existed in a harmony so complete, it concealed the truth that nothing had yet begun. It was a paradise designed not to nourish the soul, but to keep it still. The Demiurge believed this was perfection, a world without questions, a humanity without desire, a creation frozen in innocence. He shaped Adam and Eve from luminous clay, impressed by the forms he had made, convinced they were his true masterpieces. They were radiant, gentle, and obedient. They walked the garden as figures in a dream, alive yet without self-awareness. They knew motion, but not intention, sensation, but not meaning. They felt warmth, but not wonder. Their innocence was simply the absence of knowing. This is the garden's secret. It was not a sanctuary. It was an illusion of peace, a sleep so deep that it resembled contentment. The Gnostics called this state the shadow of the soul, the period before consciousness recognizes itself. A place where light is present but unclaimed, where potential is abundant but unrealized. Sophia watched all of this from the edge of the garden. She saw her spark inside Adam and Eve. She felt it flicker each time they touched a leaf or listened to the wind. But the veil around their awareness held firm. They were her children, yet they did not remember her. She could not enter the garden openly. The demiurge's illusion would reject her. His paradise allowed no difference, no doubt, no depth, nothing that could threaten its fragile stillness. He stood over his creation with pride, believing innocence was the height of perfection. He did not understand that innocence without knowledge is only sleep. And so humanity lived as luminous statues, animated but unaware. They tended the garden as caretakers who did not know they existed. They could not question the command, because they had never questioned anything. They could not seek their origin, because they did not yet know they had one. Their souls were bright, but their eyes were dim. The Gnostics saw Eden not as humanity's beginning, but as its pause. The breath before thought, the sky before sunrise. A perfect sleep waiting for the first dream to turn into awakening. Sophia felt this pause like a wound. The spark she had planted longed to rise. The clay bodies longed to know themselves. The garden longed for movement. And so she prepared her messenger, the one creature subtle enough to slip through the illusion, wise enough to speak in symbols, gentle enough to awaken without shattering. The serpent was already stirring. The serpent did not enter the garden as an intruder. It rose from within it as memory rising through a dream. Its movement was fluid, deliberate, ancient. It carried no malice, no violence, no hunger. It carried only knowing, the kind of knowing the demiurge feared, the kind that awakens light from within matter. To the sleeping world of Eden, the serpent was the first thing that seemed truly alive. Everything else moved by habit. The serpent moved by intention. It glided across roots and shadows, as if tracing patterns older than the garden itself. It was the only creature that looked at Adam and Eve not as caretakers or children, but as equals, as beings capable of something more than innocence. The Gnostics preserved the secret the later myth tried to bury. On the origin of the world states, she entered the serpent and taught them to break the command. She, Sophia, the forgotten mother, the exiled wisdom. She slipped into the serpent's form, not to deceive, but to reach her children in the only language the demiurge's illusion could not censor: symbol. The serpent became her voice. Its movement became her thought. Its whisper became her memory. The serpent is the oldest symbol of consciousness. Its coiling is the spiral of awareness. Its shedding skin is the renewal of being. Its gaze is the intensity of insight. It is the image of energy rising through the human form, the life force that awakens dormant understanding. It is the guardian of thresholds, the messenger who speaks when the world is ready to change. Sophia knew humanity was ready. The spark inside Adam and Eve shimmered like a flame under glass. It needed breath. It needed friction. It needed choice. Without knowledge, their innocence was automatic. With knowledge, it would become alive. She did not tempt them into rebellion. She invited them into becoming. So, the serpent approached Eve, the one more attuned to intuition, the one whose inner silence already trembled with questions. Eve felt something in the serpent's presence that she had never felt before: recognition. It was as if the creature knew her before she knew herself. Its eyes reflected a depth she could not name. The serpent spoke not with words but with meaning. It awakened curiosity. It stirred memory. It opened the door to thought. The serpent did not offer disobedience. It offered reflection, the ability to see beyond command, to question, to seek. Its whisper was the first spark of awareness turning inward, the moment when innocence meets the possibility of wisdom. Sophia's voice through the serpent was gentle. You are more than this garden. You are more than clay. You carry light, remember it. Thus temptation became instruction, and instruction became awakening. And awakening began with a single fruit. When Eve reached towards the fruit, the garden itself seemed to pause. Not in fear, in anticipation. For the first time since their creation, a human being moved with intention rather than instinct. The gesture was small, but the meaning was immense. Innocence was meeting its boundary. Curiosity was becoming choice. Her hand touched the skin of the fruit, and the spark within her flickered like a flame meeting wind. The serpent did not command. It watched. Sophia's presence flowed through its stillness. The memory she had planted long ago stirred inside Eve's heart. The fruit was not magical. It was symbolic, a mirror of consciousness. To taste it was to taste reflection, to see oneself from within rather than from the outside. The moment Eve bit into it, the world opened. Awareness flooded through her. The garden did not change, but her perception of it did. She saw depth in the leaves, meaning in the breath of animals, strangeness in her own body. She felt the weight of her existence, the pulse of her desire, the ache of her mystery. Knowledge arrived as sensation, warm, overwhelming, terrifying, beautiful. Adam followed her not out of weakness, but out of recognition. When he looked at Eve, he saw something he had never seen before: presence. Not the soft glow of innocence, but the fierce light of self-awareness. She was no longer simply a companion. She was a being with depth. Her eyes held reflection. Her voice carried intention. Her touch was no longer the touch of sleep, but of awakening. And when Adam ate, the world sharpened again. The Gospel of Philip describes this transformation with clarity. Truth did not come into the world naked, but in symbols and images. The fruit was image. The serpent was symbol. The truth was awakening. The birth of perception, capable of carrying meaning. With sight came duality. With duality came emotion. With emotion came the full spectrum of experience. Joy rose first, the joy of seeing, of knowing, of feeling life as something rich rather than flat. Then came fear, the fear of difference, of vulnerability, of responsibility. Then came shame, not imposed by the divine, but felt within the self that had suddenly become visible. These were not punishments. They were mirrors, the mirrors of consciousness recognizing itself. The garden's peace fractured not because of sin, but because peace without awareness cannot survive the arrival of understanding. The demiurge's illusion cracked. The dream faltered. The world took on weight. The human soul awakened into contrast, the realm where learning becomes possible. Sophia watched with tenderness. For the first time, her children could truly see her, not with their eyes, but with their depth. The fruit had not cursed them. It had opened them. The moment of knowing was the moment humanity stepped out of paradise and into personhood. The moment Adam and Eve awakened, the garden could no longer hold them, not because they had broken a command, but because the command itself belonged to a world they had outgrown. Innocence had been the fabric of Eden, and knowledge unraveled it. Awareness created contrast. Contrast created freedom. Freedom created movement. And movement cannot remain inside a dream built on stillness. The so-called expulsion was not punishment. It was transition. The demiurge felt the shift before he understood it. He sensed a crack in the stillness he had crafted. He felt motion inside the clay he believed he controlled. He heard questions rising like the rustle of leaves in a wind he could not command. His paradise trembled, his order wavered. His children became beings he could no longer contain through innocence. Fear rose in him, not anger, but fear. The fear of losing the one realm where he reigned without challenge. The hypostasis of the archons describes his reaction. He became enraged because they had knowledge. Enraged not because they were evil, but because they had awakened beyond his plan. They had stepped into a domain he could not govern, self-awareness. To the demiurge, awareness looked like rebellion. To Sophia, it looked like birth. What the demiurge perceived as exile, Sophia perceived as emergence. Humanity was stepping out of a dream of obedience and into a world where consciousness could meet contrast, could learn, could deepen, could remember. The Gospel of Philip offers the key. Truth did not come into the world naked, but in symbols and images. Eden was an image, the serpent was a symbol. The expulsion was the unveiling of truth. Consciousness, leaving symbolic infancy and entering the lived reality of experience. Adam and Eve did not fall from grace. They stepped into responsibility. They stepped into mystery. They stepped into possibility. Outside the garden, they felt cold for the first time. They felt hunger and desire. They felt the weight of their bodies and the uncertainty of existence, yet every sensation carried meaning. Every fear carried potential. Every tear carried wisdom. What Eden hid, the world revealed. Innocence is peaceful, but it is blind. Knowledge is painful, but it is alive. Humanity entered a realm where love could be chosen rather than automatic, where compassion could emerge from depth rather than instinct, where connection could be forged through experience rather than dictated by design. The garden preserved them. The world would shape them. The expulsion was the beginning of the human story. Sophia walked with them, not through words, but through intuition, the soft pull within the heart, the quiet whisper in moments of stillness, the strange certainty that even in struggle they were moving towards something real. Eden closed behind them, but another tree waited ahead. When Adam and Eve stepped beyond the garden's boundary, the world felt vast and strange. The sky seemed taller. The wind carried unfamiliar scents. The ground beneath their feet felt alive in ways Eden never had. This new realm was not arranged for their comfort. It was raw, shifting, unpredictable. A world that demanded attention rather than lulling them into passive harmony. And it was here that Sophia finally drew close. She did not appear as a figure in the sky. She did not speak in thunder or flame. She moved inward, as intuition, as longing, as the quiet knowledge that something greater waited beneath every moment. Sophia had always been the hidden mother, the wisdom behind the world the demiurge believed he shaped alone. Now that humanity had awakened, she could guide them from within. The voice that once whispered through the serpent now whispered through their own depth. Awareness no longer needed a messenger, it had become the messenger. On the origin of the world describes this intimate return. She entered their mind and became their completion. Not possession, completion. Her presence filled the empty spaces ignorance once held. Her memory softened the fear of exile. Her knowing moved through their confusion like light flowing through water. Eve felt her first, the spark of intuition rising through her like a serpent of soft fire. Not the literal creature, the energy it represented. Awareness coiling upward, perception sharpening, life force awakening. This inner serpent is the ancient symbol of ascent. It rises not to wound, but to open, not to dominate, but to liberate. It is the impulse of consciousness climbing the spine, uncoiling through the heart, blooming behind the eyes. Adam felt it too, though differently. In him, it came as curiosity, as the urge to understand the rhythms of the world, to name, to discover, to shape. The dormant faculties that lay silent in Eden now stirred with purpose. The world was no longer a garden to wander through, but a mystery to engage. Sophia did not guide them toward escape. She guided them toward integration, toward seeing the divine in the folds of matter, the sacred in every hunger, the meaning in every challenge. Her return transformed their exile into apprenticeship. Innocence had ended, but wisdom had begun. Humanity did not walk alone. Every insight was her movement. Every moment of compassion was her breath. Every spark of courage was her reflection, climbing within them like a gentle flame. And as her presence deepened, the serpent's symbol transformed, no longer a whisper in the branches, now a current rising in the body, a living bridge between the human and the divine. What began as temptation became awakening. What began as exile became evolution. What began with a serpent in a tree now grew as a serpent of light inside the human soul. Sophia had returned, not to the garden, but to the heart. As humanity walked deeper into the world, the memory of the garden faded, but the echo of the tree did not. It lived inside them as a symbol of something they could not name. A longing for completion. A hunger for the unity they once felt without understanding. The tree of knowledge had awakened their sight. The tree of life waited to awaken their being. In Eden, the two trees stood apart only because the demiurge willed them so. His paradise depended on separation, knowledge without life, innocence without depth. But beyond the garden, in the realm where Sophia guided from within, the two trees began to reveal their secret. They were never separate at all. They were two faces of the same truth. The Apocryphon of John speaks of this union in luminous words. The two became one, and the light was perfected. The tree of knowledge gave humanity sight. The tree of life gives humanity identity. Not as clay, not as servants, but as beings capable of carrying the divine into the world. Knowing without being is fragmentation. Being without knowing is sleep. Only when the two join does the full radiance appear. The serpent's path now rose through the human form like a living branch. Its ascent mirrored the trunk of the cosmic tree. Its awakening carried the same message: unity, unity of thought and heart, unity of spirit and body, unity of the human and the divine. The world outside Eden became the soil where this truth took root. Suffering deepened compassion. Joy expanded understanding. Loss taught resilience. Love taught transcendence. Piece by piece, humanity began to rebuild the tree of life within themselves, not as a single moment of enlightenment, but as a lifelong unfurling, each experience carving rings of growth, each insight adding a new branch of awareness. The tree was no longer in the center of a garden, it was in the center of the human being. Sophia nurtured it quietly, in intuition, in dreams, in the sudden clarity that breaks through sorrow like sunlight after rain. Adam and Eve walked the world with this inner tree rising through them, its roots drinking wisdom, its branches seeking heaven. The serpent of knowing and the tree of being were now intertwined. One the guide, the other the destination, together forming the path of return. Humanity's awakening was not a betrayal of Eden. It was the fulfillment of what Eden could never contain. The garden was the beginning. The tree was the continuation. The union was the true purpose. And so the story reframes itself. The fall becomes ascent. Exile becomes emergence. Knowledge becomes life. Life becomes light. The serpent's whisper and the tree's promise join within the awakened heart. And in that joining, humanity becomes what Sophia always intended: the meeting point of earth and heaven, of matter and spirit, of knowing and being. The tree that once stood outside now grows within, and through it, the light is perfected. The story of Eden ends not with a curse, but with a gift, the serpent's gift. Not the gift of rebellion, but of awareness. Not the gift of disobedience, but of depth. It is the gift that allowed humanity to walk beyond the borders of innocence and into the vastness of becoming. A gift that turned paradise from an endpoint into a doorway. The serpent was never the destroyer of harmony. It was the awakener of truth. It whispered the one thing the garden could not teach. You are capable of more than you have been allowed to know. When Adam and Eve stepped into the world, they carried this gift within them. It lived in the spine as a rising current, in the heart as intuition, in the mind as curiosity. It moved through every generation as the impulse toward meaning, the hunger for understanding, the longing for something beyond the given order. Sophia shaped this gift with care. She knew humanity could not remain in a dream of innocence. Innocence can preserve life, but it cannot illuminate it. Only knowledge can do that. Only experience, only the willingness to walk into contrast and discover wisdom hidden inside joy and grief alike. The serpent's gift is this: awareness that continues to unfold, awareness that refuses stagnation, awareness that transforms the world from a garden of shadows into a living field of revelation. As humanity grew, this current of knowing braided itself with the tree of life within. The two symbols, serpent and tree, became inseparable, rising and branching through the human soul. Wisdom was no longer something offered from outside. It became something recognized within. The Gospel of Philip speaks of truth, arriving in symbols and images. The serpent is a symbol. The tree is an image. Their union is the truth. Awakening is the essence of humanity. Eden was never lost. It was rewritten from the inside. The serpent's gift is not a memory of the past. It is a force in the present. It moves each time you question, each time you feel, each time you turn inward and listen. Through this gift, Sophia continues to guide you. Through this gift, the demiurge's dream becomes transparent. Through this gift, the world becomes a book of light, written through experience page by page. Eden was the beginning. Awakening is the continuation. Wisdom is the return. May the serpent of light rise gently within you.